Alrighty, so this is a little video just to help a couple people out who have issues with the latency option in OpenXR tools. It's prefer frames over latency. Show you how to do it real quick. First and foremost, I just want to show you something right here. I have a little program called Auto Hotkey. It's in here and it'll switch me. I have it set to switch me into a full screen mode with one eyeball instead of the binocular view you get with the default Windows mixed reality. So I'll show you how to do that in a second. So I'm in 2D mode right now, so I'm going to switch to, well, let's just make sure the OpenXR tools is not on. Alright, so it's not on frames for latency right now. I do have this selected because I like the old reprojection rather than the new reprojection that comes with OpenXR tools. It just works better for me. And I have this right here set to use best frame rate. Alright, so here we go. So I'm going to switch to VR right now, and you'll see the binocular view, right? And then as soon as I'm in VR, I'm going to turn on latency mode and then shut this down. Don't need that anymore. And now I can use the auto hotkey to switch me into the full screen one eyeball view, and it's a full 1080p image because my video capture card is 1080p, so I have to use 1080p. But in the headset, I'm still rocking, I think, 38,000 resolution by 38,000-ish, around there. So we'll just start a game real quick. Ooh, actually, let me switch this real quick just because I have to be in this view to pick the airport I'm at. Set for departure. Alright, and then fly. And then as soon as it's loading up, I'll just switch back to the full screen view as such. And we'll wait for it to load up. So with the older reprojection, disabling optical flow acceleration for NVIDIA RTX cards, that option I click so it doesn't use the newest reprojection API. I just prefer the older one. It works better for me. I don't know why it's so dark out here. Hold on, let me just switch this to daylight. All right. And we can get this out of the way. So yeah, so now prefer frames over latency is enabled. I'm not getting any flashing. I don't get any flashing. I haven't gotten any flashing using this method so far. So, and my frame rates are good. I generally like close to the ground and in high, why isn't, let's go. All right, there we go. Close to the ground and next to like highly populated urban areas or photogrammetry areas, I'm pretty much locked at 30 frames a second. And then when I'm up in the air though, and I don't even have to get that high, I'm pretty much at 45 frames a second. So it sort of bounces between 30 and 45, which is fine. It's pretty easy to tell actually in this helicopter because, and you'll be able to see in a second, when the rotors look like they're spinning slower, I'm at 45 frames a second. And when the rotors are spinning faster, I'm at 30 frames a second. You'll know what I'm talking about as soon as I get up in the air here. Ooh, let me actually set my trim for the helicopter very quickly. This is something that I've also figured out I had to do just to be able to fly this helicopter reasonably well. And go here, and I want to set lateral trim to around 17.5 or around there. There we go. And then longitudinal trim to about 24, 25. There we go, that's fine. All right, and now I'm ready to fly. So I'm at 30 frames a second right now on the ground at the airport. Might get a little stutter here and there just because, you know, airports and that bullshit, but other than that, I'm getting really smooth frame rates. Not a lot of jitters, not a lot of stutters at all. I get a big stutter every now and again just when loading a new area, which is just, just part of the stuff we have to worry about in VR. But other than that, though, it's pretty butter smooth. So I'm flying low to the ground now and at the airport, and locked at 30 frames a second, no problem. I have a 4080, by the way. It's a RTX 4080 with a 5800 X3D, 32 gigs of RAM, and the Reverb G2. Alrighty, so now we're gonna just fly towards the mountains, and like I said, you'll be able to see when I hit 45 frames a second, because I can't get the frame rates up on my screen unless I'm in that dual, ocular mode, binocular mode for the full screen. But an easy way to tell on this helicopter is right now I'm at 30 because the rotors are spinning really fast, right? Once you start seeing the rotors slow down, it's an optical illusion, of course, but the rotors will slow down. Once that happens, I'm at 45 frames a second. But right now, honestly, my flight is smooth as silk at 30 frames a second, just hovering over the ground right now. Let's gain a little speed here. And as soon as I'm out of this little town, I'm sure the frame rates, yep, there we go. The rotors are spinning slower now. And they sped back up. So like I said, in the urban areas, they'll be at around 30 frames a second, unless I'm fairly high up. But when I get a little further away, it'll start slowing down. And I'll be pretty much locked at 45 frames a second at that point. Let's see, how high am I? I'm about 1,000 feet up. Okay, rotors are slowing down inside. There we go. So now I'm at 45 frames a second, and it is butter smooth with the preferred frames over latency. It really does help quite a bit. But prior to the update, I didn't have I couldn't reach 45 frames a second as consistently as I do now. And I pretty much locked my frame rate at 30. I just locked it in the NVIDIA control panel and it was fine. But now I just leave it unlocked, reprojection unlocked, and my frame rate unlocked. And I could sometimes even hit 60 frames a second, which is crazy. And the only real stuttering you'll see right now is just because I'm talking, and when I'm talking it moves the headset and jitters the headset, but I'll keep quiet for a second. But look how smooth. I've been at 45 frames a second for the last minute or so, no problem. And no stutters whatsoever since takeoff, and I didn't even have one during takeoff. So, and yeah, I'm flying pretty slow in a helicopter at around 150 knots right now. But I usually fly Warbirds, P-51, Spitfires, shit like that, and helicopters. But even if I get into a jet, I can pretty easily hit the new A10. Just got that plane, and I hit 45 frames a second in that, no problem as well. Stuttering is, like I said, only really happens now in high photogrammetry areas, which is just the game. Even people with 4090s still get stutters. They just get them a lot less than everybody else. And the 4080 actually performs really well once you dial in your settings, of course. And I've done some pretty extensive testing with the new reprojection in OpenXR tools, the latency over frames option, and again, I also use this auto hotkey program, auto hot script. It's called. Oh no, it's called auto hotkey, and it's a script program, and it basically just tells the computer to display a full screen. Full 1080p full screen instead of stretching it out in OBS. I literally just have OBS doing what it's doing, but I also have a streaming computer, so it's offloading all that stuff to the streaming computer. But on the Microsoft Flight Simulator computer, that is showing a full 1080p display. It's showing exactly what you're seeing on screen right now. So yeah, been at 45 frames a second this whole time. Not one stutter so far. It's kind of hard to fly this helicopter from the outside view. But yeah, alright, so now, let's say you need to come out of VR, and you don't want to have that hang up that happens with latency, with the frames over latency option. So what I'll do is I'll just do a little action pause right here, and then hit the Windows key, hit that, and then turn it off. And now I can switch out of VR. Now I'm out of VR, no problem. And I'm in 2D mode on the computer. It's not frozen right now, it's just paused, so I can unpause it, say. And then now I could also go back into VR. Let's go back into VR. So now I'm back into VR, hit auto hotkey again, and then now what you want to do is turn the latency frames back on, frames over latency, turn that back on, and close that. Now again, it helps if your options are in windowed mode. That's why I use the auto hotkey to get me back into a full screen mode if I need to record or something. Whoops, now it won't come out of the pause. Hold on a second. This sometimes happens. So for some reason, the game the active pause won't. It'll take a minute for this to, unless I do this. Sometimes this helps. Nope. Alright, try this again. It's not perfect, but it is a workaround. So I'm gonna just come right back out of VR. And see if, there we go. Now it's working. So now I'm just gonna crash. That's fine. But now I can turn the latency back on, the frames over latency back on, and now I can get back into VR again. So now I'm back in VR. And boom. I'm back up, flying. Let me just change my view. There we go. And still 45 frames a second right now. See, the rotors are spinning slower, or they look like they're spinning slower. When they spin up faster again, that's when it switches to 30 frames a second because it needs the resources or whatever. So I hope this video has helped. Auto hotkey is, you can do a Google search, and there's a guy who actually turned me on to the software, and it helps for VR recording. You don't have to use the OBS plugin because, again, I don't use OBS on my gaming computer. I stream out to my streaming computer for OBS, so I could use all my resources for the sim. But yeah, It works perfectly. The game is a lot smoother now with the frames over latency option. And I use Windows 11, DirectX 11, um, not using DirectX 12, I'm using DirectX 11, and I'm using the prior version of reprojection that OpenXR Tools has by clicking that option, disable optical flow for RTX cards. That's optical flow is the new reprojection, and I find that it's okay. It works fine, but it's not as smooth as the older version of reprojection, I find. Your mileage may vary. You might have a better experience with it than I have, but again, I've done some really extensive research, and also I've done. Well, I got a little bit of stuttering right there, but now it's gone. Still at 45 frames a second. Um, I've done a lot of testing in the last few days with the old reprojection, with the frames over latency option, and just just a bunch of combinations of all of them. And this is the best I've come up with. And if you're curious, if you want to see my settings here, I'm running mostly ultra. I'm using balanced super resolution, NVIDIA super resolution, DLSS balanced, and then ultra, and then high for clouds, high texture resolution, anisotropic filtering. I set that in my NVIDIA control panel at 16 times. It sort of offloads it from your CPU. 6 times super sampling, high, ultra, medium for contact shadows. So I set my shadows down to low because I find that they don't look that much different, and at medium contact shadows, everything looks great. So yeah, light shafts are on because I don't really notice them too much, and that's that. So everything else is on high or ultra, and that one setting is at medium contact shadows. And I'm just going to shut up now. I'm going to fly over this lake real quick. It's not even a lake. It actually lets out into the Pacific. But I'm just going to shut up so you can see how smooth everything is without me talking. Alrighty, so I'm just going to put her down here, land it, and end the video. Hopefully, again, that's helped out whoever it needs to help. And the frames over latency option does work. You can get it to work without any flashing. I haven't had one flashing episode since I figured this out. And again, you might want to use the older reprojection if the newer reprojection doesn't work too well for you, or you're getting a little bit of stuttering. I find the older reprojection is buttery smooth for me. All right. Cheers.